let me ask you a question. Do you have retained earnings in your business? Hey, Badass Business Owners, my name is Tammy, and I'm here to help you grow your sales, but more importantly, grow those profits. And one of the things that I've discovered as I talk to small business owners is how little they understand about the whole concept of retained earnings. And I can understand that it's not something we talk about in the wild usually, and when we're talking about different things. So it's really common for people not to know what that is. So what I thought we would do is take a few minutes and talk about retained earnings. If you've listened to the show, you've heard me talk about multiple times how your profit in your business has 3 jobs. One of those jobs is to pay your taxes. The other one is for retained earnings and debt. And then finally, it's the part that you as a business owner gets to take. But that middle section, retained earnings, what is this whole retained earnings? And how do I even know what to do with that? Well, retained earnings is basically the simplest concept is like it's savings. It's the business's version of a savings account. And if you think about why would a business need to have a savings account? Well, you're going to want a savings account. You're going to keep money in the business because you might want to grow the business. You might want to invest in something. You want to buy a piece of equipment or a tool or something that you need to save up some money to be able to purchase. You have expenses that you're accruing at all times. For example, if you have payroll, people work today, but they get paid tomorrow. So you need to keep money in the business to pay the employees, right? You have insurance that's due maybe once or twice a year that you've got to have money in the business to be able to pay. You have other things that you want to do. Maybe you want to go out and do this big advertising campaign and you need to have money to be able to do that. So you keep money in the business. You keep a savings account, if you will, of money that you can reinvest back in the business. Now, for some people, the reason I say retained earnings / debt nowadays is because if you have any kind of debt on the business and you have loans that have to be paid, it might be a small business loan, it might be other type of bank loan, it could be a vehicle for the business. At the end of the day, when you have those profits has to be set aside, once again, for the taxes, reinvest back in the business, and that includes to pay the debt of the business. So if the business has to pay out $2,000 a month in bills that are loans, right? The loan payments, they need to retain some of the profits to be able to pay that debt. So retained earnings is also set aside to be able to pay debt the business has that's not its typical debt that you find on a profit and loss statement. Because a lot of times there are some things that aren't part of the profit and loss. Because when you buy something on a credit card, you're taking an account that you bought. Let's say you go out and you buy some materials for a job, but you happen to put it on a credit card. Well, you capture that entire sale. So let's just say it's $500. You capture that $500 in a sale in that month that you make the purchase of that, but you put it on a credit card. So the money doesn't technically come out of your account at the time because you put it on this credit card. And let's say you make $500 payments over the next 5 months. Because you didn't take the money out to begin with, you have to retain that money in the business because you still have to pay that debt plus the interest that you're accruing all along. So you don't get to count it twice on your profit and loss. So the initial purchase is on your profit and loss, but the debt payment is not on your profit and loss. It's done behind the scenes. Money still has to come out, and it's coming out from any money that was retained in the business, which came from the profits that were left at the business. The problem that I see all the time is that people will drain their accounts and they don't really leave any money in the business. So usually I'm seeing one of two things. One, they have a single checking account and they just let that thing grow. It could have $5,000 in it, 6, 20, whatever, $1,000 in it. And so they're mingling the operations account where money's coming in and out to pay the bills and the retained earnings all in one. And some people, they'll drain the accounts to nothing. They might have, if they're doing profit first, they might have anywhere from 3 to 10 accounts, but none of them have any retained earnings in them. They'll drain all of the accounts out, and that's not what's supposed to happen. You still need to have an operational account that might be the lean and mean, but you have an account that should have money in it for the taxes. You should have an account in it for the retained earnings, money for you to be able to put aside to pay future bills and to retain, just like we're talking about now. So rarely, if ever, should your accounts be all at zero. And I watch small business owners who drain those things, and they're getting fined and feed left and right because they run it so close that bills come in. They get overdraft fees. Their bank statement fee comes out at the end of the month, and that puts them in zero. And now instead of a $10 payment that's due, now they've made it up to five extra dollars. So it could be, anywhere from $15 to $25 or even $40 in fees because there was no retained earnings in the business for those bills to be paid, even though they were coming up. So it's interesting, and it's also very important. And what's important is that you don't drain your accounts, that you're always saving for things that are coming. And I get it, for some of you, especially in your first year, you may not have a lot of money to be able to leave in the business because you're just trying to survive and you end up pulling everything out. But here's the problem. When you do that, you leave yourself no money to pay taxes. And then you're shocked when you owe $3, $4, $5, $10, $15,000 for taxes, but you never pulled any of that out of the profits. And now you're struggling, where am I going to find that? Same thing with retained earnings. All of a sudden, payroll shows up and there's no money. I just dealt with that the other day with somebody who they have a huge payroll, and unfortunately, they did not retain enough money in there to be able to do it. So they have to put aside payroll and go to their people and say, look, I'm not going to have the money to pay you. I'm going to need an extra couple of days to be able to run that payroll. And we don't want to do that. We commit to these people that we're going to pay them. I mean, if you want a quick way to hurt your employees' belief in the business, is just stop paying them, because they have their bills they have to pay as well. And as a business owner, when we're asking people not to pay their bills because we can't pay our bills, pretty soon they're going to move on to a place that they can pay their bills. So just keep that in mind as well. So retained earnings are really important because, it could be that your insurance comes up. Like I said, you get this $1,000 bill, and once again, I don't have any of the money to be able to pay that bill. And now I'm like, how am I going to pay this bill? Because I didn't have any retained earnings. Retained earnings are extremely important in every person's business, because you've got to have this war chest ready to go for these important things that pop up, whether it's payroll, whether it's these annualized bills that pop up. It could be the fact that, you want to be, I went into an establishment yesterday and they were out of stock on half of the things in the building. And I know exactly what it is. They don't have the money to be able to go buy those things. So when you go in there, it looks like they're sold out, but the reality is they haven't had it on the shelf for a few weeks now, because they've had no retained earnings to go purchase the things that they want. Because it's not like they can purchase things as you buy them. In most cases, people have to have $500, $1,000, $3,000, $4,000 to go out to buy the stock that they need to fill their shelves. And if I don't have the retained earnings to purchase the product before I need it, then I'm out of stock. And if I'm out of stock, I can't create sales. And without sales, I can't create profits. So this is part of the reason why some of these retailers end up going out of business. Is it's kind of a catch-22. They can't sell it, so they can't pay the bills, but they can't buy it because they can't sell it because they don't have it. And once again, retained earnings was the cause of the problem. From the beginning, they didn't set aside and said, I have this account. I need to keep it at $5,000 at all times. If I go below $5,000, I have to replenish it back up to $5,000. Because if I have $5,000 in this account at all times, I can cover my payroll. I can buy the materials that I need or the products that I need to be able to sell. So you need to figure out for your business, what does your retained earnings look like? For some people, that might be a low $1,000. For some people, they need to have 2 to 3 months worth of money in there to be able to ride the waves of their business. If you're a seasonal business, you have to have a lot of retained earnings to get through the winter months and or the summer months, depending upon your business. I was just telling someone the other day when I used to have my ice cream shop, we are slow for 4 months out of the year. I have to have retained earnings from the summer months to put away to be able to get me through those colder winter months when people weren't buying ice cream, for example. For some of you, all of your business is done during the holidays, and you have to retain earnings through the course of the summer months so that you can get through them, because majority of your sales are coming in during the cold, or vice versa. If you're somebody who thrives during the summer, how are you going to get through those winter months? So retained earnings play a role in everybody's business in a little different way. It's the ones that have figured out how to use and leverage the retained earnings that do really well, and they're able to get from year to year because they've just figured out that, hey, I have this account for my retained earnings, my business's quote unquote savings account, and that's where I make sure that I always have $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever your business needs. And in some cases, it's much more than that, because if you're a business that bleeds money during certain months out of the year, you might have $20,000, $30,000 in there to be able to pay the bills that you need to pay because you're just not getting the sales that you need to do. It could be that your business shuts down for those 2 months, but you still have, location that you have to pay for and some payroll that you still have to pay for and stuff like that. So figure out what your business needs in your retained earnings, so this way you're ready for whatever it takes to be able to keep your business going. So hopefully this helps you understand retained earnings a little bit better, and why you want to make sure that you've got your business set up for those. Please, whatever you do, don't run your accounts down to zero. It's just a matter of time before you bite yourself in the butt. And for some of you, you're costing yourself $500 to $1,000 every month in fees just because of running those accounts so low all the time and running into the negative, and your bank taking out charges and fees for those things. Don't forget to include the debt that you've got to do. You got to retain earnings for that. If you've got growth that you want to do, if you've got payroll, you've got to always plan for. So many different things that we talked about that's part of those retained earnings. It's really important you understand retained earnings when it comes to your particular business and make sure that you're doing it correctly. All right. And with that, I'm out of here. If you have any questions, put them below and we'll be glad to answer them. All right. With that, I'm out of here and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.